Hi, my name is Claire Green. I'm a teacher. I work in schools. I've worked in high schools and primary schools and at university. I also teach in the School of Education, so I teach high school teachers and primary school teachers as well. And I also do some silversmithing in my spare time. How I got here. Okay, so when I left school, I didn't know what to do. I had been quite good at art, so I was pushed by my mum to go to art college. So I did a 4-year arts degree. My specialisation was in 3D, so sculpture, and I ended up making very small sculptures in the form of jewellery and silversmithing. So I spent 4 years doing that. And then when I left and I was out in the big bad world trying to make a living, I started to work from home as being self-employed. The problem was that I was getting orders in for the jewellery that I was making, but I didn't have the equipment to manufacture it on a large scale. So I really needed to have machinery and equipment that would allow me to replicate what I was making. And if you know anything about making jewellery, the equipment is really expensive. So it was suggested to me that perhaps I should look at doing a little bit of a teaching, and from the income that I would make from teaching, I will be able to finance the equipment for my jewellery making. So I did a grad cert in secondary education. It was a 1-year course. And that allowed me to teach. And actually, when I found out that when I started teaching, that's what I love to do. I love to do that more than the jewellery. So the jewellery became a hobby. My focus was on teaching. I was teaching a subject in the UK called Design Technology and Communication Technology, and I was also teaching art, and I was teaching English as well, but my main subjects were design technology, and that's when I first started using computers. So when I initially got my job, I was given this brand new Apple Mac. This is way back in the 90s, and I hadn't really used a computer very much at all in the past. So I took it home and I had to play with it, and actually couldn't do very much with computers in those days. But I learnt a little bit, and then I brought it into the classroom, and I found that the students knew as much about computers as I did. So I was teaching them design skills, and they were helping me with my computer skills. So we really worked together. And it was, I guess, very much the initial part of computer-aided design that I was doing with students. So that was really the beginnings for me of working with computers. It also meant that because I started off working with a Mac, I've tended to be very Mac-based since then, although I do work on PCs as well. Then I met what was going to be my husband, and he persuaded me to come over to Australia. And when I got here, I realised that the subject that I was teaching in the UK didn't actually exist in Australia. So in Australia, it was still very much what you call Workshop A and Workshop B. And because my strength was more in design rather than traditional woodworking and metalworking skills, I really didn't have a job that I could neatly slot into here. So I actually went back to my jewellery and silversmithing skills, and was working from home, supplying local businesses with the jewellery and silversmithing that I designed, having little exhibitions, and it allowed me to bring in an income while my children were young. But by the time they were ready to go to school, I was really ready to go back out in the workforce again. I know that I like working with people, and I found working at home didn't allow me to do that. And also I wanted to bring in a regular income. So I actually went back to university, and I decided, okay, well, I can't teach in Australia, so I'm going to make a different career choice and go off in the direction of social work / psychology. So that brought me to USC, and I started to do an undergraduate in social work / psychology here. And I did that for about a year. And then I realised that all the assignments that I was doing were education based, and I had to do a review and say, actually, I still really love teaching, so I'm going to take a gamble and go back into education. But because I've been out of the workforce for a little while, I thought I probably need to upskill my teaching knowledge. So I did a graduate diploma in education at the university, which is actually where I met Sandy. And that allowed me to teach middle school. So it was lower high school and upper primary as well. Yep, so after I graduated from that course, I started working in an independent school teaching art for a couple of terms. And then I got a job in a state school, and it was a primary school, and I taught there from 2011 to 2013. And I also started teaching TPP 102 from 2013 as well. So I was working part-time in a school and doing some tutoring on TPP 102. And I've really been teaching TPP 102 ever since then. So the technology that I use a lot, or the technology that I'm drawn towards, is generally something that is visual. So because my interests are design and teaching as well, then generally it will be using a program like PowerPoint or Pictochart, a visual tool for informing people or communicating ideas or information to people. So those tend to be the programs that I enjoy the most. I always come back to PowerPoint, even though I played with different presentation tools. I think PowerPoint offers a lot. So for example, you can present information in Sway, but you can't actually create anything in Sway. So often I will create something perhaps in PowerPoint and then transfer it into Sway, or do the same with Pictochart. So really making sure that I'm using a number of different tools and then combining them to create a product in the end. I think it's really important that if you are going into education, that you present information visually to students in a really professional way. And I think that quite often teachers don't do that, but if you are going to expect high standard of your students, you need to be presenting them information in a high standard format as well. And I think that that's where technology is really useful, because you don't have to be fantastic at art or design to present something that looks really professional. So those tools like Pictochart or Canva or PowerPoint are definitely the tools that I get drawn towards. I also am a Mac user, so I enjoy using things like iMovie as well, and I find that that's an excellent tool for editing videos and also for teaching as well. So if you are a Mac user, don't be concerned about your work not being compatible when you upload it for assignments. As long as you're using Word or PowerPoint or any of the software in Microsoft Office, it will be compatible. So often I have students that say, oh, you might not be able to read my work because it's on Mac, but it is compatible nowadays, so I would not worry about that too much. The other thing that I would say to you is, if you're a Mac user, make sure that when you are using training videos, that you've actually sought one out specifically for Macs, because quite frequently the interface will be slightly different, and the Microsoft Office programs for Mac are slightly different than the ones for PC. So it is really important that you get training videos that are compatible with the computer that you're actually using.